Heartwarming boy discovers bride's incredible betrayal. Transforms dad's life on wedding day. Shocking revelations await. Ethan paced nervously in the church's back room, the scent of fresh pastries and blooming flowers swirling around him like a sweet, deceptive lullaby. Outside, the sun shone brightly, casting a golden hue over the small town that had always clung to its dreams and traditions like ivy on brick walls. Today was supposed to be a day of celebration, a day his father, Tom, would finally marry Sarah, the town's beloved pastry chef who had brought joy after an ocean of grief since Ethan's mother passed away. Ethan's heart raced, but not from excitement. As wedding bells chimed in the distance, a sick feeling churned in his stomach. His fingers trembled slightly as he unlocked his phone, the screen lighting up with Sarah's messages. What had started as innocent curiosity morphed into dread as he scanned the texts, each word slashing deeper, revealing the tangled web of deception that would shatter his father's heart. The notes from Sarah to Justin, the flashy entrepreneur with an easy smile and connections that could open any door, laid bare her betrayal in intolerably blunt strokes. Confusion washed over him. The cheering voices of family and friends faded into an indistinct hum. People who had gathered, dressed in their best, looked forward to a future that had become a fragile fantasy. "This can't be happening," Ethan whispered, his breath catching. His dad deserved happiness after years of struggle, a tight-knit family shattered by loss. And now, as Tom stood on the cusp of a new beginning, Ethan held the truth that could crush everything. He felt the weight of a decision pressing against his chest, each beat reminding him of the impending vows echoing through the church. Should he say something? Reveal the treachery that would obliterate this joyous moment? His family values, taught by his father right down to the smallest detail, screamed for loyalty. Yet, honesty throbbed like a heartbeat deep in his gut. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. An internal battle raged as laughter and chatter reverberated through the air. The ceremony unfolded like a well-rehearsed performance, the gentle rustle of flowers, the delighted expressions of guests. But with each whispered "I do," Ethan felt more isolated, more frantic. Suddenly, in a moment that felt both fleeting and eternal, he saw his father glowing with anticipation, ready to embrace a future colored by new love. His heart bloomed with the hope of family unity, but the specter of the truth cast a long shadow as the officiant beckoned silence. The room held its breath. In a surge of adrenaline, Ethan stepped forward, his voice slicing through the festive atmosphere. "Wait, Sarah isn't who you think she is." The faces turned, eyes wide, hearts suddenly throbbing with disbelief. Time slowed as the truth hovered in the air, thick as fog, rendering indelible marks on the joyous occasion. What would happen next? Would Tom find solace in the tangled mess of revelation, or would his dreams shatter at Ethan's feet, leaving a chasm too deep to bridge? The once bright future they had planned now stretched uncertainly ahead, poised on the brink of chaos and exposing heartache wrapped in fragile hope. The silence that followed Ethan's declaration was suffocating. The church, filled with laughter and joy just moments before, now felt like a pressure cooker. Gasps rippled through the crowd, faces morphing from excitement to shock faster than Ethan could comprehend. His father's expression, once lit with love, clouded over like an impending storm. "Ethan," Tom's voice trembled like a fragile reed in the wind. He looked bewildered, searching his son's eyes for clarity in the chaos. Panic set in, and Ethan fought the urge to crumble when he saw his father's confusion. "Dad, I found messages between Sarah and Justin. They're more than friends. I promise you have to believe me." The words spilled out faster than he could rein them in, each phrase laced with desperation. "I should have said something sooner, but I didn't want to ruin today. I just enough." Sarah's voice sliced through the uncertainty like a knife, firm and unyielding. "You're lying. This is your idea of a joke?" Her eyes sparked with indignation, yet Ethan sensed the fissures in her composure. The mask was slipping. Had she not thought he would uncover the truth? "Is it?" Tom asked quietly, breaking the tension with a resolution that steadied Ethan's racing heart. "Is it a lie, Sarah?" The question hung in the air, an inquiry that seemed to echo in the stillness. I can explain." Sarah hesitated, glancing toward Justin, standing at the back of the church with a smug smile that made Ethan's skin crawl. With the title of the charming entrepreneur, he exuded everything his father hadn't been for years: confident, successful, fun. Ethan hated him for that singular reason. "Is it going to be a good explanation?" Tom pressed, his voice thick with hurt and disappointment. The question clung to the air, the weight settling heavily on Sarah's shoulders. She opened her mouth, then shut it again, panic flashing across her face. As she struggled to form a coherent thought, Ethan's heart sank. Time felt sluggish, every tick of the clock mocking their very existence. "I just thought you'd be better off with me," Sarah finally stammered, her bravado crumbling. "Justin and it's just been a little bit of fun. I didn't mean to hurt you, Tom. I thought you'd understand." "Understand?" Tom looked shattered, the dream of their future evaporating before his eyes. The love he had felt moments ago turned to ice, wrapping around his heart, choking the warmth that had driven him to this moment. As the whispers grew louder behind him, Ethan felt a rush of guilt. This was more than just a wedding. This was his father's heart. He had opened a floodgate that could wash away everything, leaving them bare and vulnerable. "Dad," it was all Ethan could muster as he stepped closer, needing to reassure the one person who had always shielded him from life's storms. "I'm so sorry." In that moment, Tom's gaze shifted to Ethan, a mixture of heartbreak and pride glimmering in his brown eyes. The bond between them shifted, changes rippling through the air, calling to unspoken thoughts and feelings that had been buried since the loss of Ethan's mother. Suddenly, the officiant's voice cut through their silence, reminding them that the moment had not yet passed. Ethan turned, seeing the veil of wedding bliss still draped over a gathering mixed with emotions. They waited, suspended in anticipation, hanging on every word. Would love or betrayal prevail? Would they stand together as a family or fracture beyond repair? Ethan's heart raced as he contemplated the future hanging by a thread between them. As Sarah's eyes glazed over with tears of regret mingled with anger, Ethan realized that the path forward could lead them to healing or heartache. Which one would it be? "Dad, what do we do now?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, yet echoing louder than any declaration made moments prior. In the delicate pause that followed, it became clear that the story was far from over. Ethan felt the weight of the silence pressing down on him. Everyone in the church was holding their breath, waiting for anything to happen. It felt surreal, like they were all stuck in a moment between the absurdity of what had just been revealed and the reality of what might come next. "Ethan," Tom finally whispered, his voice barely a thread. The hurt in his father's eyes shattered Ethan's heart into jagged pieces. "What do you mean, found messages?" His dad's question hung there like a loaded gun, threatening to go off at any moment. Just as Ethan opened his mouth to respond, Sarah rushed to reclaim the moment, stepping forward like a desperate actress in a poorly written play. "Tom, please, let us not do this here," she urged, one hand shaking as she tugged at her dress, the other reaching out to him, as if to draw him back into the world of yes and I do. "It's just a misunderstanding. We can talk about this later." "Later?" Tom echoed, his voice rising, tinged with disbelief. "You think there's a later for this?" The sadness was spilling over now, intertwining with his disappointment. The fairy tale had become a nightmare, and each face in the crowd mirrored Tom's anguish. Ethan felt the need to say something, anything, to fix this. "Dad, maybe we should stop," his father interrupted, his tone more defeated than angry. "I don't want to hear any more excuses." The air was thick with a heavy reality. The stories they had woven together were unraveling right in front of him. Sarah, what were you thinking? It's complicated. She stammered, her tears now flowing freely. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought we were fine. Fine? Tom snapped, the raw edge of betrayal cutting through his voice. You thought being with someone else was fine? A murmur passed through the crowd. Heads shook in disbelief, and whispers turned to questions like what now? And can this be fixable? Ethan stood frozen, panic swirling within him. He had hoped to protect his father, to shield him from the harsh truths of life, and yet here he was part of the very tragedy he sought to prevent. There was a moment when he saw Sarah's bravado crack, revealing a frightened girl who had been caught in her own web of lies. Look, Ethan said, summoning courage, whatever's happened, it's not too late. We can talk this through. We can talk? Sarah scoffed, the bite in her tone sharper than any blade. There's nothing to talk through. I made my choice. I wanted fun. Needed more. More? Tom's voice trembled, shaking with anguish. More than a loving husband? More than our family? The realization hit him with a force that tore through the room. This was our chance, Sarah. And you suddenly, Justin, who had been hovering in the corner with a confident smirk, stepped forward. Let us not make this messier than it has to be, he said, his tone detached, as if he was addressing a business transaction gone wrong instead of a heartbroken father. Sarah's just living her truth. You can't blame her for wanting to be happy. Ethan felt the heat rise in his chest. This isn't about happiness, he blurted out, anger lacing his words. It's about trust. It's about loyalty. The tension in the room amplified, morphing into something palpable, something that felt like a volcanic eruption just waiting to happen. It was as if everyone held their breath waiting for the next fracture, the next revelation that could either bring them closer or tear them apart completely. Tom turned away, his shoulders slumping as he battled tears that threatened to spill. I can't do this now, Dad, Ethan said, but the words felt heavy, useless. What do you want from me, Ethan? To pretend everything is fine? To act like this isn't real? As Sarah's sobs echoed through the church, Ethan felt a split, a painful divide forming, not just between Sarah and Tom but also within the very fabric of their family. He had to decide whether to pull them back together or let everything fall apart. A choice lay ahead, but the ramifications were yet to reveal themselves. He drew in a breath, knowing one thing for certain: whatever happened next would change them all forever. Dad, he finally said, if we don't talk now, we might never get the chance again. As the silence stretched, Ethan wondered if they were ready to face the truth and the pain it could bring. Would they fight for each other, or would silence be their new language? Ethan sensed the gravity of his words hanging in the air like a fog. The flickering candles cast shadows on the faces of the people around them, each one trapped in their own personal storm. As the church faded into the background, all he could see was the turmoil between his father and Sarah. Please, he urged, stepping closer to his father. We can't let this moment define us. You both mean too much to me. Can't we just talk? Tom turned back, his gaze piercing through the chaos. What do you want me to say, Ethan? His voice cracked. The woman I love. She threw it all away for what? Fun? I thought we had a family. I thought we had a life. The phrase life echoed painfully in the church, a stark reminder of promises made. Ethan felt the weight of despair press down on him. He had been so sure of their love, the kind that lasts through adversity. Now that love felt precarious, teetering on the edge of a cliff. Sarah's crying eased for a moment as she took a step toward Tom. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I got lost in wanting something new. But being with you, it wasn't a mistake. I was confused. The affirmation struck Ethan like a thunderbolt. Did Sarah really believe what she was saying? The crowd's whispers intensified. He could see friends and family exchanging worried glances, some with pity, others cloaked in disbelief. Sarah's truth, whatever that meant, was unraveling in the worst possible place. Confused? Tom repeated, his voice dripping with hurt. You've destroyed everything. We had plans, dreams. Each word was a dagger piercing through the air. What could possibly justify this? Nothing, she admitted. I wish I could take it all back. Her confession hung there, heavy and suffocating, as the collective tension in the room shifted towards the idea that perhaps nothing could be undone. Ethan felt his heart racing. We can fix this, can't we? He said, his voice rising in desperation. He looked at both of them, each figure a vital part of his world. Dad, you can't throw everything away. You have to try. Tom took a deep breath, his eyes glistening as he struggled with the wave of emotions crashing over him. Ethan, doing what's right doesn't seem easy anymore. Maybe it shouldn't be. The vulnerability in his father's voice was heartbreaking, shaking Ethan's resolve. Justin, still standing with an air of casual arrogance, shrugged. Maybe it's just time to move on, Tom. You've got to accept reality. Sometimes, love isn't enough, and trying just feels exhausting. These were not words of comfort. They felt more like nails being driven into the coffin of their shared past. Ethan felt anger bubbling again. Love should be worth fighting for, he thought. Love is always worth fighting for, he exclaimed, the conviction swelling within him. We owe it to each other to at least try to be honest about how we feel. Silence engulfed the church once more. Around them, spilt tear tracks glistened on cheeks. Faces revealed worry, suspicion, and against all odds hope. Could they really claw their way back from this abyss? Sarah was staring at Tom, her eyes pleading. I messed up, but if you'd give me a chance, I'd do anything to make it right. An ember of hope sparked within Ethan's chest. Perhaps honesty could heal, even when the wounds were fresh. Tom shifted his weight but didn't answer right away. Ethan held his breath, praying for a ripple of forgiveness to break through the current of despair. In that pregnant pause, Ethan could see the fight within his father. But then, a sudden sound pierced through the silence. The church doors creaked open, bringing in a gust of wind that carried a chilling energy, cutting through their fragile moment. What now? Ethan thought, dread pooling in his stomach. Would this just add to the already growing unrest? Or could it be the answer they all needed? Ethan's pulse quickened as he turned to see who had entered, his heart racing with anticipation. A figure stepped into the church, silhouetted against the dim light streaming through the open doors. As the wind whispered through the hallowed space, Ethan squinted to make out the details. It was Megan, his sister, and she looked even more out of breath than usual, her face a mix of confusion and urgency. What are you doing here? Ethan blurted out, the sense of impending chaos growing stronger. His family was already unraveling, and now Megan threatened to unleash even more chaos. Megan. Tom started, instincts flaring as he recognized the strange mix of timing and emotion in her entrance. He moved slightly, steadying himself against the pew. What's going on? Listen, she said, rushing forward, tears glistening in her eyes. I need to tell you both something important. The tension in the room thickened, wrapping around them like a tight coil. What could possibly be so important now? Justin interrupted, an exasperated edge in his voice. They're already at the edge of the cliff, just let them fall. Shut up, Justin. Ethan snapped, anger flaring again at his friend's sardonic tone. This is not the time. Megan took a deep breath, shaking slightly. It is important. I was at the cafe this morning, the one by the park. I overheard something you all need to know about. It changes everything. A ripple of anxiety spread across the church crowd, the weight of her words sinking in. Ethan felt his heart pound louder in his chest. What are you talking about? I heard a conversation between someone who has been connected to this mess. You know him. He has been around. He was with Sarah. Last night. Her voice cracked a bit, and Ethan could see the color drain from his father's face. What? Tom said, disbelief hanging in the air. There was a moment of fragile silence before chaos erupted once again. Who was it? Meg? Tell us. Austin. She finally blurted, as if the name itself was a stone cast into a pond. He said she'd made the worst mistake of her life, that it was supposed to be a secret. Now it's all coming out. Ethan felt as if the floor had dropped beneath him. Austin? How could that be? They had all thought of him as a friend. Instinctively, he looked towards Sarah, whose expression morphed from desperation to horror. The possibility unfurled before him like a shocking tapestry of betrayal. Tom turned to Sarah. "Is this true? Is he lying?" His voice was choked, a mix of pain and disbelief. Sarah stumbled over her words, searching for an explanation. The room was now alive with the sound of whispers and shocked gasps, each corner infused with disbelief. "It gets worse," Megan said, her voice trembling. "He said you were never even meant to be with him. This was all a game, a cruel game." Ethan felt the weight of despair threaten to crush him. Could things really fall apart any more than they already had? The walls around him felt as though they were closing in, and in the distance, he could almost hear a clock ticking down, a countdown of hope. Why? Tom's voice was a quiet storm. Why would she do this? Sarah's face twisted in anguish, shaken to her core. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I thought I was chasing something special." "But chasing?" Ethan repeated, anger bubbling back to the surface. "Chasing what?" Another heartbreak. The atmosphere was electric, the collective energy of the crowd weighing heavy. All eyes were glued to the trio at the center of the storm. As Tom stood no longer able to hold onto the glimmers of hope he had been clutching, Ethan felt time hang suspended. The truth was crashing in like waves against jagged rocks, relentless and unyielding. That's when a child's cry broke through the tension. A small voice calling for a parent in the back of the church. Ethan turned, the sound grounding him amidst the chaos. It was his best friend's daughter, her big eyes wide with innocence, oblivious to the turmoil surrounding her. Perhaps he thought, just maybe, there was a sliver of hope yet to uncover. "Let us go to her," he whispered urgently, turning to Tom and Sarah. "While we're all drowning, maybe we can find a way back to the surface together." But as he looked back, the church doors swung shut, leaving behind a silence that promised only questions. Ethan's heart raced. What would they discover in the coming moments? What truths awaited them outside those doors? Ethan took a deep breath, steadied himself, and gestured for Tom and Sarah to follow. The child's voice, soft and laced with innocence, carried through the oppressive atmosphere like a beacon. He didn't want to leave Megan's shocking revelation hanging in the air, but there was a different urgency pulling at him now as they made their way to the back of the church. Ethan stole a glance at Sarah. She looked haunted, eyes swimming with unshed tears. "What have you done?" he mouthed, a silent accusation bridging the gap between them. Her lips quivered, but before she could form a response, they reached the little girl. "Uncle Ethan," the girl exclaimed, running into his arms. Her tiny frame was warm and comforting, wrapping him temporarily in a cocoon of childhood wonder. He hugged her tightly, feeling her small, soft hands clutch the back of his shirt. "What are you doing here? Where's your dad?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "I was looking for him. He said we should stay by the doors, but I got scared." "Why is everyone shouting?" she asked, blinking up at him with those wide, unsuspecting eyes. Ethan glanced back toward Tom and Sarah, feeling anguish rise again. How could he explain the chaos to this little soul? "It's okay, sweetie. Just a little misunderstanding. You can stay with us. Can we go now?" she asked, tilting her head, oblivious to the storm brewing around them. For the first time in what felt like hours, Ethan felt a flicker of strength. They could leave this place filled with painful secrets, and for her sake, they should. "Yeah, let us go outside. Okay?" he said decisively, lifting her up, wishing he could rise above the turmoil as well. He led the way, Tom and Sarah trailing behind, their silence a big weight in the air. As they reached the tall church doors, Ethan hesitated briefly. Would they really walk out into a world teetering on the edge of heartbreak? Could they possibly find respite from the chaos? He took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The sunlight poured in, flooding the dim interior with brightness. The outside world seemed different, untouched. The whispering wind brushed against his skin, carrying with it a sense of renewal. But even amidst the light, the shadows of betrayal still lingered in his heart. "Ethan," a familiar voice called, and he turned to see his father rushing toward him, worry etched in his features. "What's going on?" "In here, Dad," he replied, gesturing back toward the pews. Megan overheard something about Sarah and Austin. His father's brow furrowed into a deep crease. "Austin? The same guy we thought was yeah," Ethan replied, cutting him off. "It's worse than we thought. It's all a game to them." His voice softened as he looked down at the little girl he held, who was staring at them with confusion. "Let us not talk about this here," his father murmured, glancing nervously over his shoulder at the congregation, where hushed conversations had begun to swell again. "Let us go back to the house. We can figure this out." Suddenly, the crunch of gravel underfoot echoed from the entrance, and they turned to see Meg standing there, her face a canvas of emotions. "Wait, please don't go," she pleaded, desperation threading through her voice. Ethan's heart dropped. "What more could you possibly say?" he demanded, feeling the walls of his family tighten around him once more. "I know where Austin is right now. I heard more than I told you." Her words hung in the air, each syllable laced with the weight of urgency. Ethan felt an old pang of hope begin to stir. Maybe she had information that could help unravel this mess. But the knot in his stomach tightened with every passing second. What truth lay beneath her words? "Now what?" Tom whispered, the flicker of uncertainty mirrored in his eyes. Ethan turned back to Meg, every fiber of his being poised for the revelation ahead. "What do you mean? Where is he?" Her gaze flickered, burdened by the weight of her knowledge. The breaths around them felt labored, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for the truth to spill. In that charged moment, Ethan realized there was no way back. They were headed straight into the storm, and he could only hope they would come out the other side, together. Ethan's heart raced as he searched Meg's face for answers. The sunlight that had once felt warm now cast long, unsettling shadows along the ground. "Tell us, Meg," he urged, trying to break through the tension. "Where's Austin?" She took a breath, her eyes darting away for a second before landing back on him, filled with an emotion he couldn't quite read. "He's with someone he shouldn't be. I think he's at the old warehouse on Willow Street." The words hit Ethan like a punch. Memories flooded back. Laughter, late nights, secrets shared. Austin had been more than just a friend, he was family. How could he betray them like this? His grip on the little girl tightened, as if she were the anchor holding him steady in a growing storm of confusion and sorrow. "Why didn't you say anything earlier?" he pressed, still searching for the answers that seemed just out of reach. "I didn't know how," Meg replied, her voice shaky. I heard them talking. They thought I was gone. I didn't want to believe it at first." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and in that moment, Ethan could see the weight of her own turmoil. "I didn't know how to tell you, Ethan. I thought it would get better somehow." "Better?" he scoffed, the bitterness in his voice sharper than he intended. "You think hiding this was going to help?" "Stop," Tom interjected, his brow furrowed in frustration. "We don't have time for this. If Austin's at the warehouse, we have to move." Ethan nodded, urgency rising in him like a wave. "We have to go now," he said, his eyes fleetingly meeting Sarah's. Something flickered between them, an understanding, perhaps, or a shared regret they both wanted to deny. "I'll come with you," Meg insisted, stepping forward, her determination unmistakable. "No," Ethan said firmly, shaking his head. "This is too dangerous. Stay with the kids." He met her gaze, trying to convey all the unspoken words between them. "Please." With a defeated sigh, she nodded, but the weight of disappointment hung in the air between them. He turned toward Tom and Sarah, feeling the gravity of the decision looming large as the little girl shifted restlessly in his arms. "All right, let us get to the car." He began to walk, but a thought held him back. What if he's hurting someone? He whispered, fear rippling through him like static. "Then we'll be there to stop him," Tom replied, bravely pushing back doubt. As they hurried to the parking lot, the sound of the gravel crunched sharply beneath their feet, each sound echoing the tension inside them. Ethan fumbled for his keys in his pocket. Time felt different here, fluid but heavy, as though the clock had stopped outside the church. Sarah's face was pale, but she stepped close. "Ethan, about what Megan overheard I know," he interrupted, feeling his anger resurface. "We can't do this now. We need to focus on Austin." The vehicle seemed to promise safety, yet he could sense the storm brewing not just outside but within their very selves. He opened the door, placing the little girl inside and fastening her seatbelt with practiced care. She looked to him, curiosity and fear mingling in those innocent eyes that begged for reassurance. "We're gonna get your dad back," he said, forcing a smile. "Okay," she chirped, still naive to the gravity of their mission. Ethan slid into the driver's seat, the air thick with the sweat of unspoken fears. Tom climbed in beside him, and Sarah took the back, shadows of doubt lingering in her silence. As he turned the key in the ignition, the engine roared to life, a dissonant echo that felt both reassuring and menacing. They were about to dive into something they couldn't fully understand, but there was no turning back now. The warehouse was only a few minutes away, and every second felt like a countdown to something monumental. "Hold on tight," he said to the little girl in the back, heart pounding as the tires rolled forward. The warehouse loomed in the distance, its abandoned facade wearing years of neglect, but something darker lurked within. Ethan clenched the steering wheel, his thoughts racing. What if this was not just about Austin but all of them? The lines between family and betrayal were blurring, and he couldn't shake the feeling that what lay ahead would change everything as they neared the location. A flicker of movement caught his eye. Was that a shadow? "Wait," he shouted, and he slammed on the brakes. The world around them felt like it was tilting dangerously. Something was about to break loose. "Ethan, what is going on?" Tom asked, panic threading through his voice. "Something's not right," Ethan breathed, peering out the windshield. "This is just the beginning." Ethan's heart pounded as he scanned the dimly lit surroundings of the warehouse. Shadows twisted underneath flickering streetlights, making the place look alive with untold secrets. He could feel Tom's and Sarah's anxious glances, each heartbeat echoing the unspoken fears in the cramped space of the car. "Is that someone moving?" Tom whispered, leaning slightly toward Ethan's window, squinting into the dark. "Yeah. It could be Austin or someone else," Ethan replied, fighting the dread pooling in his stomach. The little girl in the back seat remained unusually quiet, sensing the tension. "We should split up," Sarah suggested, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Might give us a better chance of finding him." "No," Ethan said firmly. "We go in together. If there's danger, we can't take the risk." He turned the car off and unclicked his seatbelt, pulling in a breath to ground himself. They needed a plan, but all he could think of was Austin, how they had grown up together, sharing everything under the sun, and now that trust was cracking at its seams. "Stay close," he instructed, and they shuffled out of the car slowly, shoes crunching against the gravel. The air was thick with uncertainty, but he pressed forward, determined to find Austin before things spiraled out of control as they tread closer to the warehouse entrance. Every fiber in Ethan's being felt the weight of impending confrontation. A memory flashed, a summer spent in the backyard where laughter filled the air, Austin swinging the little girl around. How could that be the same man who was now entangled in something sinister? "Do you see anything?" Tom whispered, peering around a corner as they approached the wooden door, chipped paint screaming neglect. "Not yet," Ethan muttered, tightening his grip around the flashlight he de-grabbed, the beam piercing the darkness ahead. They crept forward until they all halted in unison at the sight of a figure in the distance. "Is that?" Sarah's words trailed off, eyes wide as they met the familiar silhouette of Austin. Relief washed over Ethan, but when he took another step forward, a glint of metal caught his eye. "Austin," he called, fear racing through him anew. Austin turned sharply, his expression a whirlwind of surprise, fear, and something else, something darker. "Ethan?" he stammered, as though hope and regret collided in his voice. But before Ethan could take another step, another figure emerged from the shadows next to Austin, one Ethan did not recognize, a face hiding behind a mask of secrecy. "Leave him out of this, Ethan," the stranger warned, voice low and steady. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, anger and confusion surging together. I said, leave. Ethan felt the little girl grasping his shirt tightly, and suddenly, everything felt far too real. Austin, what is going on? He pressed, eyes darting between his friend and the stranger. Austin's gaze was downcast, shame etched into his features. I messed up, Ethan. It's not what you think. I'm in deep trouble. The words tumbled like stones in the silence. Ethan's heart sank. In trouble? With who? The stranger stepped closer, positioning himself protectively in front of Austin. That's enough. You need to go. No, Ethan said vigorously, stepping forward, heart racing. We're not leaving without getting answers. You can't let him walk into this. But before he could finish, the sound of sirens echoed from afar, growing louder. Panic surged through him. The clock was ticking, and he sensed a shift in the air. Something momentous was about to unfold. Austin, he shouted, desperate now. Run. You have to run. Austin's voice cracked, but it filled with unmistakable urgency, urging them to flee. Ethan felt a wave of dread crash over him. Was this the betrayal Meg hinted at, or was it layered in something far worse? The doors of the warehouse suddenly creaked open, revealing more shadows than he dared to count, and a part of Ethan wondered if this was the moment that would change everything they had shared forever. Go! Tom shouted as the shadowy figures moved closer. Ethan grabbed Sarah's hand tightly and pulled the little girl with them. Heart pounding, he made a choice. They had to escape, but what remained of their friendship with Austin could be forever altered as they sprinted toward the car. Ethan's mind raced like a tornado. Was Austin really caught up in something terrible, or had he willingly crossed a line into betrayal? The questions hung heavily in the cold night air, and Ethan knew this was just the beginning of a path that would lead them to some hard truths. In the distance, sirens wailed louder. Would they reach safety in time, or would they uncover something darker than even their deepest fears? Ethan's legs felt like lead as they sprinted toward the car, the reality of their situation crashing down around him. The sirens grew nearer, a cacophony of red and blue lights that painted the night with urgency. The little girl clung to Sarah, her eyes wide with fear, reminding Ethan of the fragile innocence they were trying so hard to protect. Faster! Tom shouted, his voice strained. Ethan could see him glancing back, anxiety written all over his face. Heart racing, Ethan reached the driver's side door and yanked it open. The metallic clang echoed in the stillness, a stark reminder of the danger closing in. He jumped into the front seat, fumbling to start the car. The engine sputtered, then roared to life. But the sound only added to the impending chaos. Get in. We have to go, he shouted, panic creeping into his voice. Sarah helped the little girl into the back seat as Tom jumped in beside her, all three of them breathing heavily. The urgency of the moment pressed on Ethan. Austin's warning rang in his ears. Was it too late to turn back? What if leaving was the worst choice they could make? Ethan slammed the gear into reverse, glancing in the rearview mirror just in time to see shadowy figures flooding out of the warehouse. One of them, he realized with a jolt, wore the same face as his friend, but it was now twisted with a grim urgency. Wait! Austin! He shouted, but the sound lost itself to the noise of screeching tires as he backed out. He swung the steering wheel hard, turning toward the road. His heart was stuck between hope and betrayal. The weight of their escape surged through him, but the reality of leaving behind Austin, his best friend, gnawed at his insides. They barreled down the street, headlights cutting through the darkness, but the ache of uncertainty clung to him like a shadow. Where do we go? Tom asked, trembling, trying to catch his breath. Anywhere but here, Ethan replied, struggling to keep his eyes on the road while assessing the frantic night. Sirens still echoed behind, but their escape felt like a fragile win. Shouldn't we go back? Sarah interjected, her voice shaky. What if he needs our help? He's in too deep, Ethan said, anguish cutting through his words. Every instinct told him to go back, to reach out, to save his friend. But at what cost? The little girl in the back seat whimpered softly, her face a mix of confusion and fear. Where's Austin? She asked, her innocence clashing with everything Ethan felt. He swallowed hard, guilt clawing up his throat. He's gonna be okay, Ethan promised, though doubt filled the air like a heavy fog. As they sped through the dark, Ethan's mind spiraled. Memories of carefree days with Austin washed over him, camping trips, shared ice cream, secrets whispered late at night under a blanket of stars. Which version of Austin was real? The boy he loved like a brother, or the man who let them into this mess? Ethan? Tom's voice broke through the anxiety. What do we do now? Find a safe place, Ethan replied, determination setting in. We have to figure out what's really going on. But the knot in his chest only tightened. Time was running out, and as the weight of their choices sunk in, he knew they needed a plan. Something deeper threatened to unravel their lives, and he felt it starting to close in. Do you think he's in danger? Sarah asked, her voice distant, wrapped in worry. I don't know, Ethan admitted, feeling the fragility of their situation. Every choice mattered now. This was about more than just friendship. It was about surviving. As they sped down an empty highway, Ethan glanced in the rearview mirror. The lights were fading in the distance. They had escaped for now, but the storm was far from over. There would be questions about Austin and about their friendship. The longer they ran, the more complicated things would become. Ethan, Tom shouted, breaking through the dark cloud of his thoughts. What's really going on? We need to know the truth. And somehow, Ethan knew the truth would be darker than they could ever imagine. To uncover it, they might have to confront not just Austin, but also the shadows lurking within themselves. With their hearts pounding, they pressed forward into the unknown, chasing answers. The question now was, what would they discover waiting at the end of this chase? The air crackled with tension as Ethan drove towards the unknown. His heart hammered against his ribcage, fighting the storm rising within him. Tom sat beside him, radiating worry, while Sarah cradled the little girl, whose innocence felt like a fragile light in the shadowy world spiraling around them. Did you call the police? Tom asked sharply, voice crackling with urgency. No, Ethan replied, eyes fixed on the road, swallowing hard. Not yet. We need to understand what we're dealing with first. As they turned a corner, Ethan's mind raced, reflecting on everything that had just happened in that warehouse. Austin's expression haunted him, the confusion, the fear. It made the knot in his stomach twist tighter, a painful reminder of betrayal, but also a hope for redemption. Ethan, we can't just keep running, Sarah interjected softly. What if he's in real danger? What if I'm aware? He snapped, then steadied his breath. I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening anymore. The little girl shifted quietly in Sarah's grasp, and Ethan noticed her eyes wide, reflecting the flickering lights from the dashboard. It was as if the entire world outside felt distant and surreal. Where are we headed? Tom questioned, breaking the thick silence. I have a friend, a safe place. If we can regroup, we can figure out how to help Austin, Ethan said, though doubt gnawed at him. What did that help look like now? They drove in silence, the hum of the engine filled with tension, until the small house appeared on the horizon, the familiarity of it bringing a sense of relief. Ethan parked in the gravel driveway and turned off the engine. The weight of uncertainty filled the air. Is this it? Sarah breathed, peering out the window. Yeah, Ethan replied, his heartbeat quickening. Just stay close. Okay? As they stepped outside, the night air kissed their skin, chill but refreshing. They walked up to the front door, and Ethan knocked, his knuckles tapping with rhythmic urgency. The door swung open to reveal Jenny, his childhood friend, eyes widening with concern upon seeing the expressions of distress. Ethan, what's wrong? She asked, pulling them into her home. Just need to talk, Ethan urged as they stepped inside, trying to pull himself together amidst the chaos. Jenny took in the sight Tom's sunken shoulders, Sarah's tear-streaked face, and the little girl clinging to her as if she were a lifeline. Ethan led them into the living room, where frayed couches and familiar relics brought a semblance of comfort. Okay, Jenny said, keeping her voice calm. You're all safe here. Now tell me what's going on. And as the storm of revelations poured out explaining the betrayal and confusion surrounding Sarah and Austin, an air of weightlessness filled the room. Each piece of the story unraveled the thread of hurt they all held on to, revealing the wounds that needed to be healed as the last words left his lips. The heaviness in the room shifted. "Ethan," Tom said quietly, "even with everything that has happened, we have to focus on the moment, on the feelings. We can't keep carrying this hurt like a burden." Jenny nodded in agreement. That's the only way to start anew, to address the fear, the heartbreak, and find a way forward together. Sarah wiped her tears, the truth settling deeply within her. "I never wanted any of this to happen. I was scared, and I made mistakes. Now we work through it together," Ethan said, aware that forgiveness might not come easy but was necessary. "We need to reconnect, not only with each other but with ourselves." Moments of silence fluttered by a tapestry of realization unfolding before them. They were family, imperfect but united in their love and commitment to one another. "Ethan," the little girl spoke, her soft voice cutting through the tension. "Can we see Austin? I want to help him too." Ethan knelt down to her level, his heart swelling. "We will, I promise. We'll do everything we can together." "Together," Tom whispered, squeezing Sarah's hand, their shared strength kicking the worries to the back of his mind. With resolve firmly planted in their hearts, plans began to take shape. Conversations roamed around strategies, ways to reach out to Austin, and possibilities of what could unfold next. Hope conquered despair, and they forged an unbreakable bond in the fire of adversity as the dawn began to break outside. Filling the room with soft golden light, Ethan realized it was more than just helping Austin. It was about mending the frayed threads of their lives, transforming their pain into growth, and emerging together, united. "Let us go help him," Tom finally said, his voice a strong anchor. A unified front, a quiet storm of determination washed over them all. "Okay," Ethan agreed, hope fluttering in his chest. "Together," Sarah added, a lightness permeating through her sadness. And as they stepped out into the promise of a new day, the bonds of loyalty, forgiveness, and love wrapped around them, fierce and unwavering amid the echoes of their past. This time, they would face whatever came next as a family, full heart and joined hands. And as the sun rose higher, illuminating their path forward, their journey toward healing had just begun. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.